Becoming a reflective practitioner then requires us to engage with critical analysis, and there are certain influences that we can consider in terms of engaging with critical analysis. Essentially, the influences on our ability to be analytical and critical are about the amount of time that we have to dedicate to this process, and the psychological space that we have, the work environment, the people that we interact with, the context in which we're working will have an impact, have an influence on the process of critical analysis. And as we've seen also, the reflective practice tools that we use will also have an influence on the critical analysis that we're engaging with as reflective practitioners. There are different forms of reflection that we can think about in terms of being reflective practitioners, and we've looked at these in previous lectures. For example, a teacher may rely on one particular strategy, for example, like reflection in action. There's nothing wrong with that. There are different contexts in which we're working, and therefore different influences which impact on the process of criticality. Another important consideration is within the context of work that teachers are always in a dialogic context, and therefore there are a range of perspectives and beliefs about teaching and about learning which are influencing us as teachers. And what we can use in terms of tools are things like case studies, reflective journals, observations, and looking at critical incidents in the classroom. These are processes which can these are strategies which can influence the process of reflection. How we're reflecting can actually influence the outcomes of reflection. But what we're always trying to do is be critical based on certain competencies. And one competence of critical analysis is about gaining clarification of the experiences that we have. Or in other words, trying to understand the experience, identifying the focus, analysing the experience, looking at the questions that we're raising, the arguments that we're putting forward in relation to the experience, how we're challenging and turning that challenge into decisions and judgments. Because it's through this that we begin to not only identify our assumptions, but we gain clarity about the assumptions that are perhaps unknown to us or unstated. Another competence of critical analysis is the ability to provide a basis for thinking. Or in other words, it's about being a good judge of evidence, of sources of information, looking at the credibility of information, how to judge observations and the quality of information from observations. Another competence for critical analysis is inference, or in other words, the ability to deduce and induce knowledge, understanding from the experience, and to make judgments about our deductions, and to make judgments about our inductions in relation to the experiences, and also the value judgments that we're making about the experiences that we're having. And a final competence of critical analysis is metacognition. Metacognition is essentially the ability for the teacher to reason about thinking, to think about thinking, to look at our assumptions without disturbing the value base that we're working from. And this lack of interference is the metacognitive key point, because it's very much about developing our abilities in terms of judging and making decisions and working with experiences in the classroom.